What are some of the cons about living in Japan compared to the US that people don't talk about? Welcome back to the Rice Bowl channel. So in today's video, I want to talk about the cons about living in Japan. And when you go online and you type up cons of living in Japan, I think a lot of stuff pops up, but a lot of it doesn't apply to me, for example. So I'm just going to talk about what I personally find to be a con about living in Japan. So the first one, as mentioned in the comment section down below from a user, is natural disasters. And it's true in North America, you know, we get the hurricanes, we get the snowstorms, we get all that, but we don't get that many earthquakes. And okay, I might be wrong, I'm not too sure, I don't know about every single section in North America, but Japan, well, I'm gonna say there's like devastating earthquakes, fear of tsunamis, all that. So a lot of people have to somewhat live in fear for that. And the government is saying in the next, okay, my numbers might be off, but in the next 30 years, there's going to be like one huge devastating earthquake. It might have been the next 50 years, there's an 80% chance of a huge devastating earthquake. Many lives are going to be lost. And you know, people seem to just be living life here, I don't know. But every time I come here, I'm just like, man, is it going to happen while I'm here? I hope not. But anyways, number two is the price of fruit. That's right, you know, it's like the cost of food in Japan isn't that expensive, to be honest. I have a series on my channel where I talk about it, and it's true, a lot of people who, you know, do tourism, they come to Japan, they go to restaurants every day, and they come back home and you hear them like, oh yeah, Japan was so expensive. But honestly, like, it really depends where you eat. I have a friend who spent like $20,000 here in 3 weeks with his wife, and like, man, like, I can't even imagine like what he was eating, where he was staying. I usually just go to the supermarket, the conveyor belt sushi place. It's very cheap for me, but the price of fruit is another story. If you want to buy one pear, sometimes it's like 400 yen. Same story for an apple, same story for a peach. It's like, I think it's like 3 USD to conversion, something like that. Just think about it. If you want to buy an apple, it's going to cost you $3. It's true, eggs are cheap, bread is cheap, rice is cheap. A lot of vegetables that I'm personally interested in, like, I don't know, like Napa cabbage, mizuna, that kind of thing, it's cheap also. But I like eating fruit, and fruit is expensive, you know. I was at a loss of words where I stumbled on my words right there. Like, don't even get me started on oranges or like clementines and things like that. Bananas are cheap though, I have to say, and kiwis are very good, and I guess they're not that expensive because we're close to New Zealand. That's what I'm going to assume. But the price of like apples, pears, all of that, you know, so expensive. Anyways, moving on, the fact that you're earning in yen. And okay, there's an asterisk here, a caveat why this is a con. If you're just planning on staying in Japan and you're earning in yen, no big deal, you know, because you're earning a salary and it's going to be compared to, you know, the cost of living, all of that, you know, it's all adjusted for. But if you're planning on moving back to the United States, now you might have some problems. I'm not an economist, I'm not a, you know, financial planner, so this is not any financial advice. But from my perspective, if you're earning in yen already, you're not making, the salaries aren't that high here in Japan, you know, so you're not going to be making that much money. And then with the conversion factor, it's going to feel like even less. So if you're planning on retiring in the United States, but you're working over here right now, you might run into some problems. So that's like a big disadvantage, I think, about, you know, working in Japan. Only if you're planning on returning to the United States, other places in North America later on, you know. But, you know, each their own. Next is the heat. And every single year I come here, I'm like, man, it's so hot in Japan. And even on the news, they're like, yeah, it's historical. And then they have like the panel on the shows like, oh yeah, it's historical heat, please be careful, don't go outside too much, this and that, be careful of dehydration. And then people come over to, I live with my grandma, by the way, and then people come over to my grandma's house and they're like, oh, like, is the heat okay? Like, but you know, even for us it's hot, you know. And I'm like, yeah, I can imagine, it's so historical. And I've been hearing that since I'm 7, historical heat. I remember when I was like 6 or 7 and I came here and I watched TV and they were saying, oh, it's going to be 31 degrees today, 33 degrees today, and I felt like a tough guy, you know. Like, back in North America, I didn't have to deal with above 30 degrees all that often, and I was surviving in 33 degrees. And now recently we're seeing temperatures upwards to 40 degrees Celsius. I don't know the conversion in Fahrenheit, unfortunately. But yeah, those are the big 4 cons that I can think about personally. Natural disasters, the price of fruit, earning in yen and the heat. You know, again, it depends where you live in Japan. If you live up north, you don't have to live, you know, with the heat too much. If you live where I live, there's not that many earthquakes, you know, so that's another story. If you live near, I'm sure, like an orchard, the price of fruit isn't going to be that expensive. And if you're working for like this huge company and making a lot in yen, the conversion might not affect you too much. So it's really like case by case, and this is like more biased towards my experience living in Japan and, you know, being here over the years. I only started coming here, like when I was younger, my parents would bring me, but then we had like a gap where we stopped coming at, I'm not too sure, I'd say like 4 years or something like that. Then we came 1 year and then we didn't come 1 year. And then after that, I started making my own money. And I was able to like buy the plane tickets on my own, and my dad would just email my grandma and be like, okay, he's coming, this and that. And I studied here at one point also, you know. So over the years, you know, I've just noticed a few things in Japan, and some people might be like wondering like, oh, why isn't he talking about the work culture in Japan, this and that? And to be honest, I can't really comment on it. I've only worked at a restaurant and a takeout restaurant. And the first restaurant I worked at, I was only working there like 15-20 hours a week when I was studying. So I wasn't really overworked. Don't get me wrong, it was a tough job, but I wasn't really overworked. And the second place I worked at, it was like a takeout restaurant. And yeah, at the beginning, I think I was working like max 50 hours a week. I might have had a 60-hour week in there, I'm not too sure. But then, you know, as the restaurant started to, it was still new, like takeout restaurant, right? But as people started getting used to the place and, you know, business started to go down, my hours went down also. And then towards the end, when my brother came here, I was helping him with some stuff, so I was only working like 25 hours a week, something like that. So I personally can't speak about the overwork culture or anything like that, but I am able to speak about the natural disasters, fruit prices, earning in yen and heat. And yeah, that's the story. If ever anyone has a question that you would like to have answered, let me know in the comment section down below. Anyways, I hope you have a nice day. See you in the next video. Hey, thank you for watching the last video, by the way, but and the support recently on the channel, I appreciate it a lot. But anyways, have a nice day. See you in the next video, and goodbye.